Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment, Questions and Answers edition. I'm Marina Hyde.
And I'm Richard Osman. Hi, Marina.
Hello, Richard. Now, before we even sort of get into the questions, we have some any other business. The QI elves have been in touch. Oh, it's never good.
It's never good.
It's never good. By the way, we love the QI elves.
But it's like getting a telegram from The Hague. You're like, oh no, have they caught up with me?
I never opened mine. Unfortunately, Richard got a QI klaxon in your recent show when he said that Catchphrase recorded their Christmas episode in May, which was the earliest ever in TV. QI recorded our Series W Winter Wonderland episode on March the 11th, over a month before Easter. Can anyone beat that?
Yes, I can definitely beat that. Also, people always say, I'm sure we've talked about it. I know when people say, why on earth are you doing this in June or May? It's because if that's when you film for the year, we do 110 episodes of House of Games and we do it in June and July.
It's called public service. Look it up.
That's when we do it. And that's the cheapest way to do it, is do it all in one go, because the team work for that. You know, everyone just does it. And so when you do that, you do the Christmas thing, because we're not going to be back in studio before December. So we can't just turn up in December.
You can't just turn up and have Christmas in December.
Yeah,
what the hell?
That's crazy. Yes, I can beat March QI elves. On Deal or No Deal, we once filmed next year's Christmas show last Christmas. So we did it a year in advance. That's what we did. So can anyone beat that, would be my next question.
Don't try and beat Noel Edmonds.
Don't try and beat Noel Edmonds. Fascinating. We had a lot of response to the Noel Edmonds item on last week's main show, didn't we?
Yes.
People were very interested.
People were absolutely intrigued. I was able to offer some further information on certain matters. Listen, I think we should probably get on with the questions and answers, Richard. I've got one for you.
No way. This is good. This is going
Hannah
well.
Conwill is in touch to say, hi team, huge thanks for the podcast. You're most welcome, Hannah.
Oh, thank you, Hannah.
It's a taste of home while I'm in the US. Now, speaking of British cynicism, what is the best example you have of something that lost its magic once you saw how it was made?
I saw someone saying they'd met someone called Hannah recently and asked how it was spelt. And she said just 2 of each. So that's great. 2 H's, 2 A's, 2 N's. Hannah, my main answer would be it's almost always the magic is increased. Almost always the magic is increased when you go and see something being made, which is weird because it should be smaller. The one cliche you always hear is you go to a TV set and it's much smaller than you thought it was going to be. And there are certain shows where that is the case. If you could, something like Match of the Day or BBC Breakfast or something like that, when they have these amazing screens around them, it's smaller than you think. But because of the lack of shows being made in British studios, most shows are now in huge studios. If you come to House of Games, it's enormous. It's a really, it looks big and impressive. You go to Countdown, it's enormous. These things that you would think you would walk in and go, oh my God, it's tiny. And it tends not to be. There's a traditional one, but it is really, really, really true that you go to see the University Challenge set and you want them to be on top of each other.
Yeah.
And of course they're not. And they're not, because they do have shots during the thing of them being side by side. But even so, when you walk in and you just think, well, this doesn't...
You want it to be like blankety blank.
Yeah, you want it to be like blankety blank. You just think, well, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
This isn't the show that I see on
This isn't further
television.
Education in the United Kingdom, and I want no part of it.
Yeah, exactly that. And I bow to very few people in my love of University Challenge. I really do. I was just really, really struggling to think of a show where there's some magic that disappears the moment you turn up. The show that I would never go and see, again, because I love it and I know it would lose its magic for me. And I talk to all sorts of people who have been to see it, is Strictly. Now, Strictly, I love Strictly so much. But, they filmed both those episodes on the same night, as everyone knows that's not a spoiler. You have to sit in the same seat all the way through and sort of cheer and applaud. And my one thing as a TV producer is always, how long is this going to take? And with Strictly, it's really, really, really long. And of course, you've got to turn up before for for a group dance, and then there'll be bits in between the two shows, and then you've got to do the final show. It's just you'd be there for a really, really, really long time. And what the producers and director on that show do so brilliantly is they make it feel just like an effortless party throughout. So you're watching on TV and it's just a joy from start to finish, and you're always watching something. There's always sequins in your eye line. But to go there, I know a few people have said, I went along to support a friend of mine, and they're like, God, 5 hours later, I'm still there. I'm sort of, I've got a grin that sort of, has been plastered on. I was talking to someone who'd been on Strictly recently, and normally people are very good, they toe the line. But he was saying, when you're actually on that balcony looking at the other contestants, all I'm thinking is I have to dance later, and I'm absolutely bricking myself. And yet I constantly have to be looking at this person. occasionally someone I don't like particularly, and smiling and being really, really supportive. So that's, of the whole Strictly journey, that was the hardest bit. Most of the time, you know full well that people love each other, but just occasionally, especially if you're dancing at the end, I do not want to be standing here. I want to be in my dressing room, head in my hands, trying to get my, don't go through my moves, doing this, that, or the other. And I can't, because the show has to look like this joyous thing, which it does. Gladiators would be another, because you just know
the set changes is
what
such
an incredibly long record that is. There's no way of doing either of those shows without that. And I know, as a producer, I know that. So I wouldn't go along to them, because I know some of the magic would be taken off.
I was thinking about this while you were talking, thinking, is there anything? I have to say that there are some things that I've heard about how they were made, and you hear people have horror stories either as writers or maybe working with very difficult actors, really unpleasant, working in horrible writers' rooms. It's really weird. Even when I know this, or maybe the two people who've created a show have fallen out. Even when I know this, I have to say that it doesn't, especially because it's often behind fantastic shows, these sort of things, and in fact, all the ones I'm thinking about, which I can't really name, without betraying confidences, were really big and really successful. But knowing about that behind the scenes stuff I go back and rewatch and think, can I see it? Can I see that these two hated each other? Or can I see this line that they went with instead of what somebody else wanted to have? I hear about it, and you hear real horror stories. It makes you wise to individual people, but I don't think it changes the show for me when I hear. If I loved it first time round, even if I hear that something dreadful happened in order to get it, I don't mind that much. It doesn't ruin it for me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You can often know too much about what goes on behind the scenes. I hasten to add, I love University Challenge and Strictly and Gladiators. There's just certain things where you just think, oh, that's tough to make. If you come and see, I think we're going to do a bonus episode soon about how House of Games is made. Joey, our producer, is coming up to talk to all the team about what happens on a day on a show like that, and so we'll be seeing some of the magic behind the curtain there. But I would hope most people who come along to that show still think it's magic. Owen Riley has a question for you, Marina. I've read about a number of actors who have said they no longer have to audition for movies and are simply offered roles by directors/studios. Denzel Washington, who revealed he hasn't had to audition for a role since he won his Oscar for Best Actor in 2001. My question is, what does an actor need to do to be afforded this right?
This is a good one. If you don't have to audition, you're what's known as offer only. By the way, nothing in this is hard and fast. Auditions now, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but auditions now are mostly self-tape. So you record at home and you send it in. Offer only means that they're going to make a financial offer to you. You do not have to do an audition. I'm sure Denzel has never had to audition since then, because people think if you get Denzel, how things tend to work.
You build something around him.
You're a writer and a director or a producer, and you need to attach a star. This is what it means. And if you've got someone attached to the project, then you've got a project basically, and you can go out and sell it. The star is really the most important part of that, unless it's a director like someone like Christopher Nolan, who is really bigger than all the stars in terms of what he brings, and we'll come to him in a moment, because I can assure you people will audition for Christopher Nolan if he asks it.
I would, if he's listening.
Yeah, if he's listening, if we're available. If you're a TV actor, you might be offer only for a cameo. Say you're going to be just a guest star in 1 week's episode of a series, or you're going to even maybe have a 3-episode arc. Then you will be offer only if you're a name, and they'll want to get it, and you'll like it because it's quite a short job and what have you. So what happens if you're someone like Denzel and you're doing a movie? Then the casting director will make a list of people who are available for maybe the co-star role or the supporting actor roles, and the further you get down the list, the further away you get from offer only. And most people are going to have to send something in. And by the way, there are a lot of actors who say that, or their agent will say they're offer only. But as I say, Christopher Nolan's asking you to read for something, you will do it.
Or also, by the way, if someone says Denzel is doing this film and we're looking for Denzel's wife or Denzel's sidekick, you go, I will read for that.
I will read for that because I want to work with that person. As I say, offer only for a guest star, but not for a co-star or whatever it is. Even A-listers have to do chemistry reads. So if if you've got two romantic leads, they will have to do a chemistry read.
And a chemistry read is exactly what it sounds like, which is how do these two bounce off each other? How do they look together on screen? How do they interact off screen as well? Film can take a very, very long time. But it is that weird thing that you can be sitting talking to two people in a room, and then you look through the camera and you go, Oh.
Yeah, it just doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But even obviously when you're offer only, you will have a meeting. Denzel will have many meetings before he agrees to be in the film, and maybe before they formally tell him that it's all going ahead. Over the years, you can read so many interviews with people who say, I wanted that part so much. Travolta was offered that part, Vincent Vega, without an audition. But Bruce Willis, who was riding far higher than Travolta at that time, so wanted it. He wanted that particular part. He auditioned for that. Now, Jodie Foster, in Silence, Jonathan Demme really wanted Michelle Pfeiffer to be Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster had been a star since she was quite literally a child and had no need to audition for that, but really wanted it so much and did. And you always, and as I say, Christopher Nolan is a prime example now of someone who people are so keen to work with that they will do things. And I actually, recently speaking, saw some tapings of some huge actors recently, and all of those people do not do auditions, supposedly. I would be offer only. And all of them, I saw the tapings of all of them and they were effectively auditioning. So it's a kind of imprecise answer.
But also with the Christopher Nolan type thing, you can audition for him because even if you're not right for this one, you just want to be in the room with him, get on with him, show him your chops. And for future reference, you might just think, oh, actually, that person I really liked when they were in the room, and actually this role wasn't right for them. But this is, I'm always amazed by how few just offer onlys there are. Even in British TV or something, you get. I was talking to Phil Daniels about it, and he'd just been doing a self tape for something. And I was like, but hasn't your entire career been an audition? You know what Phil Daniels does. Does that suit the character that you've got? You've seen him do 50 different things in 50 different ways. You know who he is and what he does, but they still will self-tape them because why not? But yes, it's almost always a status thing, which is if you are doing the show or the film a favor, it will often be offer only. If this will be advancing your career in some way or other, then you will audition. It's that kind of very delicate balance, isn't it? Of actually, I would absolutely love to do this, and this would do my career some good. I will audition versus that would be a lot of fun. They know I'd be good in it already. Then it's an offer. So yeah, as you say, it's a deeply movable feast. But I'm always amazed at how many people audition for things.
Oh yeah, even if they say they don't. Here's a good one for you, Richard, from Courtney Shembry Gray. I keep hearing about the TV networks supposedly running out of money, but it strikes me as untruthful. How can they be so poor when the BBC takes a licence fee from millions of people in the country?
I mean, there's some truth in that. But that's like anything, isn't it? It's like the prison service. You think, why is the prison service so run down when they take tax money from everyone in the country? I mean, some things are very, very expensive. TV is definitely one of them. You have to take a view as to whether you get more from the television industry than
mass incarceration
than it takes out. It's weird how those two worlds, BBC and mass incarceration, have really crossed over in recent years. So yeah, I think TV is very expensive. It has large capital set up funds, big teams who have to make it. So it does cost a lot of money.
With the BBC, they've taken constant real terms cuts because of inflation and various other things like that, and they had co-production money. There were so many co-productions on British Tech, which, by the way, was itself a journey in the sense that in the old days, they could afford to put on all their own drama and comedy and what have you. And then it became very expensive. But then suddenly there was all this money coming in from the streamers who wanted to do co-productions in order to build their libraries and to get that sort of exposure. But now there is no co-production money and they can't afford to do so many of the things they want to do. There's so many things on the BBC slate that would be sort of they're half-funded. The BBC's half-funded and they don't have co-production money anymore. And
how do you mean by that they don't have co-production money anymore?
Because they're not going to do any more deals with Netflix. They're not going to do any more with HBO. Something like I May Destroy You, which is HBO and the BBC, or lots of other different things. They had lots of these arrangements and those are now gone.
Yeah, but they do co-production. BBC Studios will do co-productions and get money from elsewhere. But yeah,
not that stream
in terms of other, absolutely, in terms of other platforms. So yeah, I think the basic point is there's an awful lot of things that are funded by all of us, none of which have enough money. So the BBC's basic annual budget is somewhere around just over 5 billion. And about 65% of that comes from license fee. The rest comes from commercial activities and selling shows and what have you. So that's what they're working with. And it sounds like an awful lot of money. But then if you think about what it is that they do with that money, it soon kind of gets apportioned out. Television is, incredibly expensive to do. I know people say, look at how many people they're sending to Glastonbury and this, that, the other. By and large, the ones cloth is cut very close to the bone. Can a cloth be cut very close to the bone?
I think
you know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
And so if it sounds like something's overstaffed, it's because you don't understand how complicated it is to put on. I think there's definitely an argument that in the past, the BBC maybe had more money than it knew what to do with. I think that is definitely the case.
That's long past.
That is long past.
If you look at stuff like the World Service, which used to be paid for by the Department of International Development, Foreign Office, whatever it was, their arrangement, and then suddenly it was all for the BBC to fund, and now government have put in some money. But this is a sort of huge and amazing instrument of soft power that, in my view, we should fund double. It's so little money when you look at the big sums they're talking about. It's like, if you doubled it, someone like Peter Bazalgette, who was saying recently, why don't we just double it? It's another sort of £80 million, which in terms of government sums is absolutely nothing. And it's such a huge sort of influence across the world.
Yeah.
And would make so much sense. That's a real investment in soft power Britain. And yet the BBC is expected to come up with it. And because things have become more expensive, it just means it's going to have to cut things.
Yeah, listen, we all know how much it is to fill potholes, and we all think that should be done. And, you know, the BBC fills cultural potholes, I think, up and down the country. 100% get it that if the BBC doesn't work for you or there's nothing on there for you, then why would you pay it? But I feel that we've been very open about this on the show many times, that we feel that the BBC is a net positive for the country. I never talk about the BBC because they pay me to do House of Games, so I feel I'm compromised. The BBC is trying to do local radio, local news, big primetime, mainstream shows, dramas, sitcoms, all of those things. It can do far fewer than it used to because it does have, in real terms, an awful lot less money. Yeah, it is not at a stage anymore where it is frittering money away, I would say, but television happens to be very, very, very expensive. So if you want to be in that game, and I would say as a country probably do want to be in that game, that's what it costs. In fact, it should cost an awful lot more.
Right. After this break that we're about to go to, we're going to talk about why books smell like they do.
Listen, we got range.
Yeah, huge range. See you after the break. This episode is brought to you by Sky Cinema, the ultimate destination for movie lovers to enjoy the latest blockbusters, with Paramount Plus included at no extra cost.
Now, Anora, this year's Best Picture winner at the Oscars, has just landed on Sky Cinema. If you haven't seen it, it follows a Brooklyn dancer, a Russian oligarch family, and a Cold War with the in-laws. It's sharp, it's stylish, with 5 Oscars to prove it.
Add Twisters and Wild Robot to the mix, and Sky Cinema doesn't just offer films, it premieres them straight to your living room.
Paramount Plus, as Marina said, included with your subscription at no extra cost, bringing you blockbuster movies, new originals, and hit shows. The full series of Mobland is available to stream now, as well as exclusive blockbusters like Gladiator 2, that's on there.
Plus, enjoy hit series like Lionesses and Landman, which I love, exclusively on Paramount Plus. One subscription, and suddenly you're choosing between togas, turf wars, and tornadoes.
Search Sky Cinema to find out more. Paramount Plus Basic, with ads included for Sky TV customers, with Sky Cinema only.
Our friends at Sky, proud partners of The Rest is Entertainment, have made it easier than ever to find something worth watching. All you have to do is ask.
And this June, it's all about pride and cultural icons. Just say pride into your Sky remote and you'll unlock a collection that's bold, brilliant and bursting with LGBTQ+ stories, from cult classics to cultural milestones.
There's joy, there's defiance, there's a lot of great hair, and a few heartbreakers too. Here's what made it onto our personal pride playlists.
What would make it onto your list, Marina?
I really want to. I love Heartstopper so much, but I think I'm just going to say a movie because there's breadth there, and I'm going to talk about Queer, Luca Guadagnino's movie, which is loosely based on William Burroughs' memoir, and Daniel Craig's in it, and it's set in post-war. He's a sort of expat, American expat living in post-war Mexico City. There's a whole wild kind of vision quest involving ayahuasca, and there's that. And there's a bit where he's walking back from a bar to the hotel, and it's Nirvana, Come As You Are. And I've actually never heard that song in that way. It made me rethink of it completely differently, but it's brilliant. He's fantastic in it, Daniel Craig. And the whole film is a kind of dreamy, very odd, but brilliant, very kind of compelling watch.
I am going to recommend an amazing sitcom. I think it was the best sitcom of last year. It was on Disney Plus, and it's called The English Teacher. It's Brian Jordan Alvarez, and he is an English teacher. He's an out gay man, and he's working essentially in a high school in Texas. and with the, some of the
with all that entails.
With all that entails. But it's one of those sitcoms, just when you're despairing of ever seeing a great sitcom again, The English Teacher came along, and it just takes the world on in such an interesting way and such a unique way, and it's such a 2025 way that you just go, why have I not seen this character before? I feel like I've seen a show set in a high school. I feel like I've seen wacky teachers and, kids who are bored and always on their phones, but it's done in such a way, and the jokes are done so brilliantly that you just think, thank goodness for this. Brian Jordan Alvarez writes it, stars in it as well, as Evan Marquez, who's the titular English teacher of the piece. But it's just brilliantly funny, and most importantly, it's just absolutely full of jokes.
Okay, well, there's no question that It's a Sin would make it onto my list, which is Russell T Davies's brilliant drama about the AIDS crisis, told through the group of sort of young friends in the 80s. Obviously, the story has got so much tragedy in it. I don't think anyone writes friendship and fun like him. There's something about the way he writes it that's so authentic, and you really feel like, oh, I really want these people to be my friends. I actually went back really recently and watched episode 1 of it, just because I wanted to see how he did it. You're aware what it's like.
You take it up as a writer, you want to see how a brilliant writer does it,
just
right?
Literally, dismantle it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And, as I say, it's completely heartbreaking in lots of ways, but there are moments of total levity. I mean, even there's a bit in a hospital and someone is dying of AIDS, and one of the other people in the room says, actually, he's my boyfriend, in this really defiant way. And he goes, well, I'm not. But the idea that you could inject any humour into that situation, but it's so real and so brilliant. I just think it's amazing. I absolutely loved It's a Sin.
You've taken that off my playlist. That definitely would have been, no, listen, that definitely would have been right up there. So our playlist is It's a Sin, Queer, Heartstopper, and The English Teacher. If anything we've mentioned has piqued your interest, just say Pride into your Sky remote. It's the easiest way to explore the full collection and save your favourites to your own playlist to watch later.
And with cultural landmarks available on Sky like Paris is Burning or Call Me By Your Name, you won't be short of icons to queue up. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back, everyone.
As promised, we're going to be smelling books now, really, because Lola Marshall has asked. My friend and I were discussing how new books seem to vary in smell.
Wow.
So we were wondering, does an author choose which type of paper to publish their book on? Is the smell of paper a factor that goes into consideration?
It's the only thing for me.
Yeah.
That's why I signed with Penguin, because they promised me the smell. I just went to all the different publishing houses, smelt the books, and chose the smell I liked. No, look, there's a lovely new book smell. We all know that in the same way as a new car smell. We can work out where new car smell comes from. It's kind of leather or kind of furniture polish altogether. Yeah. But books don't have their own intrinsic smell. You certainly don't choose what the smell of the book.
It doesn't come to you in smell-o-vision, sadly.
It really doesn't. No one is going around the cedar forest of Croatia going, this will make a great Marianne Keyes. I had a chat to some of the production people at Viking, which are my publishers at Penguin Random House, Sarah Granger, thank you, Sarah, and Annie Underwood. And they said a number of things. They quite right. They're saying there's nothing like opening a new book and smelling that new book smell, but the smell has almost nothing to do with the paper that is chosen. It has all sorts of different things. The paper itself doesn't have a strong smell. Okay, I mean, listen, we never kind of walk into the room and go, what's that smell? And it's like we've left a piece of paper somewhere. It's very, very rare. It's made up from a number of organic materials. As it gets older...
Old book smell is a thing that people love.
I'm quoting here, exactly. The paper decays and emits a range of different smells. So what you're smelling there is decaying paper.
Wow, does Gwyneth have a candle of that? I don't think so.
Obviously, should do, right? And that depends on the composition of the paper, ink and binding materials used. I had a long chat with my publisher about it as well. And we're talking about why you choose certain papers. The thickness and quality of the paper is absolutely taken into account. Certain papers, you can go to your bookshelves and find, hardbacks and paperbacks and things.
Isn't it?
There's some classier stuff on there. And some of it's to do with what ink is being used, what font is being used even. Some of it is to do with the length of the book. Because, if a piece of paper is like 2 micrometers thicker than another piece of paper, actually by the time you got to the end of 400 pages, that's a lot more thickness. And you've got to think of the spine of the book and all of that stuff. It has to take ink very well. It has to be not opaque at all. So you don't want to see the next page coming through. American books you'll find are an awful lot floppier than British books. So
like their chocolate.
Like their chocolate, exactly. Listen, there's certain things America does very well. Chocolate and book paper quality
neither of them.
not two of them. But both Sarah and Annie said, so there's lots and lots of considerations when you're choosing paper, but smell is definitively not one of them. Often it can be where it was stored, and, often it can be something in the bookshop or wherever that gives it a certain smell. And they tend to be kind of, you'll pack them 25 into a crate, and then it'll be in an airtight crate, so that often they're sitting in an airtight container for quite some time before they get to the shops. Again, maybe there's something in that. One of the absolute keys now, which I think definitely wasn't the case 20 years ago, is sustainability. Because, obviously if you have an audiobook or if you have an ebook, there are far fewer environmental concerns. But the book industry uses a lot of paper. It kind of has to. It's known for it. And so my books, for example, and I'm not the only one. I haven't been the one going, I have to have sustainability. This is Penguin Random House across and the other publishers. So my paper, if you want to have a little smell of it now, it comes from Sweden, where you get very low carbon emitting papers used from sustainably managed forests. So all my paper for the UK editions, and for most of the European editions as well, is Swedish.
None of that American muck.
Paper. Listen, it's not muck. I don't know. Actually, I don't know where the Americans get their paper from. They've got a lot of forests over there, so I assume they...
Have they tariffed it yet? They've tariffed pulp.
Tree tariffs.
Pulp, yeah. We'll look into where America get there.
If they tariff pulp, that's bad news for the book industry and also for pulp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is no such thing really as choosing for smell. The smell comes from environmental factors, and it gets more pungent with age. So if you like the smell, just listen. You've just got an easy win there. A very good, very specific question from Claire TP that lots of people want to know the answer to, and I suspect you might know it, Marina. On an old episode of The Thick of It, the Malcolm Tucker character, Malcolm Tucker, says, "No, I don't think they'll run with it because it's libelous, just as libelous as the Huw Edwards rumour." This was around 2007. Now, Claire TP asks, did the writers know something, or was it just a joke at the time? Did they, and writers in general, have to get permission to make these sorts of jokes from the person they are about?
Okay. Well, first of all, you don't ever have to get permission from someone to make a joke about them. I suspected this was the answer, but I checked with Armando Iannucci about this. And he says, no, we knew nothing about Huw Edwards. We picked his name because at the time he seemed like the most squeaky clean face of the BBC. And it was going to be either him or Attenborough, but they figured that Malcolm would pick a news guy when he was making his joke. So he said the only time they were challenged by the BBC lawyer was when Malcolm is scripted as saying it's inevitable as what they'll find in Jimmy Savile's cellar after he's died. And they said, oh no, Jimmy Savile's incredibly litigious. Remember, he was still alive at the time. Armando said, well, we're not saying what's in his cellar, and maybe it's just some old cement and a broken vacuum cleaner, but they would not allow it to be run. I think, first of all, as someone who sort of writes things, occasionally I'll get a call from the comment desk at The Guardian when I file my column, and they'll say, when you're saying this, is it because you know something about this person? And I will almost always say, if it's not clear what I'm saying, then no, the only reason I'm making that joke is because either this person is completely the last person you would think of this.
So it's a funny cultural
or
reference.
It's about something, it's about something, because implication, if you imply heavily enough, then it is libelous and you can't defend it in court. It's quite obvious to anyone what you're saying. And so that's the case here. It's quite interesting thinking about the Huw Edwards story and what was known and what wasn't. And I think when the first lot of the story came out, many people were saying, oh, look, you've driven this man to seek help for mental health and all this sort of thing, and you've done something. But actually, as it turned out, and The Sun were under a real pressure for people saying you shouldn't have run this. But as it turned out, the reason that they were pretty confident with their story is that they had something called someone told me about this, which is the over the years file at The Sun.
Oh, really?
Now, when people ring in, some news stories come because you've got a tip off and then you investigate it and whatever, but a lot of stories come in as ring-ins, and they always have done. And
so that's just a member of the public.
That's a member of the public just ringing in. Yeah. And some of the biggest stories, the biggest scoops have actually just come from ring-ins. And obviously you have to still follow it and you have to stand it up, which means you must make it legally defensible and you must be able to print what you have. And after this story about Huw Edwards paying somebody at a station came up, and The Sun thought, let's just have a look in the over the years file. And they found that over the years, they'd logged, but not done anything particular. Because also people ring in with ridiculous tips saying, honestly, like I've just seen Elvis down at the supermarket, or whatever it is. So, but someone
saw Elvis at the supermarket. I thought he was dead. Are you saying he was alive?
He'll be in the over the years
Yeah.
file. In the over the years file.
Tell me what was he doing? What aisle was he in? Okay. And you're absolutely definitely sure it was Elvis.
Listen, I used to.
You're a huge Elvis Costello fan. It was definitely him. Okay, this is less interesting story than I thought it was going to be.
Well, I used to answer the phone on the showbiz desk at the Sun. It's so long ago, like actually in the last century now. But you get the most extraordinary ring-ins, and lots of them were complete nonsense. Having said that, they developed a system of logging them, and as it turned out, when they had a good look into the over the years file, there were many incidents of people ringing about stuff about Huw Edwards, but either it had seemed almost on the par of Elvis being seen in the supermarket at the time or whatever, but there was a lot more. So it doesn't, you're not able to stand up. Probably those people no longer have that number, but the volume of it suggested a pattern.
Like when different police forces finally got all of their information together, and you were able to cross-check that 5 different people in different places.
He's done it in 37 different places in the UK. Yeah. So there is that. But in terms of making jokes about those sort of things, to bring it back to the question, either make the joke and be quite, you've got to be able to stand up the fact that you've made it. There is a humour defence where it doesn't extend to suggesting that someone is a paedophile or has got things hidden in their basement. Although you could say someone's got things hidden in their basement if it's quite obvious that they're just like a weird person and obviously they haven't got anything hidden in their basement. If you could say that about, I'm trying to think of.
Or if it was like Lorraine Kelly.
Yeah, you could say, well, when it all comes out, what's in Lorraine's basement? Yeah. Certain things like that, jokes like that can work. But I do sometimes get calls where people say, are you actually implying something specific about this person? Because if you are, even if it's veiled, it is still the libel.
So the basic irony behind it is, if it is completely not true at all, you can do the joke. If it might actually be true, you can't do the joke.
You can't do the joke, yeah. Or you'll have to find a very different way of doing the joke. And there are lots and lots of ways around this, which I could probably think of in specifics over the years.
But that
as we do this podcast over the years, I'll think of specific examples.
But that was a pure coincidence.
A pure coincidence, yes.
Like Charlie Brooker's national anthem with the Prime Minister having sexual relations with a pig.
Yeah.
And people go, he must have known. I think, no, that was just, it's one of those things.
Every now and then life surprises you.
Yeah, doesn't it just? Actually, can I finish with one final question? Because this is from Gavin Dutton, and lots of people ask us this. Not sure if you've covered this before. We haven't, Gavin. But I was recently searching for one of my favourite shows, Lovesick, on Netflix, but it's vanished. You can't buy it and you can't stream it. It's like it's been wiped off the face of the internet. What should I do? Why do shows disappear?
You're right. Lots of shows do disappear. And it's interesting. Lots of amazing television from the 80s and 90s is gone. And I know Lovesick's not from that. Lovesick's from about 10 years ago, isn't it? But shows that fell into the sort of gap between what we might call physical and digital. So they just don't really exist in any way anymore. A huge amount of the reason that shows don't exist anymore and you can't really get them on any of the streaming services or to buy on Prime, which a lot of shows that you can't get anywhere else, you can nonetheless pay to buy on Prime. But I think you're right about Lovesick. A lot of the reason why it happens is because of various rights issues, which become complicated after a certain amount of time, after a certain broadcast window.
And by rights issues, it's normally that you have to pay an awful lot of money to one of the stakeholders in a production.
It's almost always music, by the way.
Yeah.
Music it's bizarre. Music holds up more of these things than ever. I mean, for a really long time, Barry Levinson, who, Homicide, Life on the Street, which is based on that great sort of David Simon book, and they made it and it became a huge series. Barry Levinson just kept saying, I don't understand why we can't get this. And that might have been, again, a music rights thing.
But that's on now Homicide, isn't it?
You now can see that.
And by the way, you should.
I wonder if you could find, Gavin, a DVD. And you're starting to think, well, I don't have a DVD player, but more and more people are getting back into this. And so many people, we talked before about sound quality on the streamers and the way files have been compressed and different things that affect things. Lots and lots of people are buying copies, hard copies really, of their favourite things because the whole promise of streaming was that you could watch anything you wanted whenever you wanted.
I'm going to look up Lovesick DVD as you're talking.
I wonder whether you can, well, there's that Dudley Moore movie, isn't there, Lovesick? You might get lots of that, but you might be able to find, I would have thought, because so many things are still issued on DVD, and Disney took a huge amount of Disney stuff off.
Yeah, listen, we can get the movie. We can get the Dudley Moore movie.
Yeah, can you get the...
You cannot get the series, but you can get it on Apple.
Oh, that's
there
good.
You go. That's
okay.
nice and easy. Let's solve that. I mean, you have to pay, but...
As I say, it's mostly music rights. Sometimes, depending on who it was originally with, it saves paying residuals, or you can use it as a tax write-off. So some shows have disappeared. It's amazing. There are fan communities absolutely dedicated to saying, why can't we have this? And as you can see, it goes all the way up to someone like Barry Levinson saying, we need to make this work. I don't understand why this isn't working. And then, lo and behold, it does become available. But almost always it's rights.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful questions. We will see everyone, or members at least, tomorrow for our summer reading recommendations. That'll be a bonus episode. And otherwise, we'll see everyone next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.